Okay, good stuff. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. As I mentioned earlier, we do this on a quarterly basis. This is our last one for the year. For those of you that understand Southern Hemisphere, we are going into our festive and summer holidays. So most people are winding down the work that they've got, finishing up the development items, and we will then take a nice summer break and then be back in early January. So thanks for joining our last webinar, product webinar for 2025. For those that haven't met me before, my name is Guy Jelley. I'm the co-founder and CEO of PPO. I'm joined on the call today by, I see some of my team. Some are probably still joining. Tarryn-Leigh, Frans, that most of you know her as well. She's been at PPO forever. Was a client with one of our implementation partners, and I think has been with PPO for 12 or 13 years. She'll correct me now, I'm sure. But Tarryn, 13, good stuff. Tarryn will take us through most of the session today, and then just also a quick welcome to Lucille. She'll be doing our customer spotlight. So thanks for that, and I'll introduce her a bit later. Very quickly today, we're going to do the inline editing, which is a new feature we deployed very recently. Calculated key metrics, which is an update to an existing feature, the key metrics which you've had for a while. Our customer spotlight, we're going to be demonstrating something that's fairly new and actually not on the list of features of PPO yet, but something that we have been using with a number of clients and something that plays quite a significant role in our roadmap going forward next year with some changes and enhancements we want to make to it. If we get time, we've got some other smaller enhancements, and then, as I said, the Q&A session. And Tarryn will give you the dates for next year's webinar that you can get them into your diary as well. I did also get a sneak peek on next year, and there seem to be some PPO swag and those type of things to be given away by the looks of it for good attendance for next year's webinar. So there's 4 of them a year, so see if you can attend as many as possible, and Tarryn, I'm sure, will send you something nice during the course of next year. This is our year in review, so this is not every single feature we deploy basically on a weekly basis, but this is just a highlight of some of the big features that we've released during the year. The one thing with PPO that you can't say is that the product is stagnant or doesn't move. We release more features and functionality than our clients are actually able to adopt, but we have a fairly significant client base, and we thank you all for that, and they all want something. So we try and make sure that we continually improving the product. The DevOps guys work very hard during the year. So this is just some of the highlights, and I know there are some questions around some of there's a poll or a survey later on about some of these as well. Remember, you as clients have an opportunity to engage directly with your success manager. Every client has one. Tell us what you want to see on the pipeline. And most importantly, you can log those ideas and enhancements as well. We actually want to next year use some of the time in these quarterly sessions to do some voting and ranking of our pipeline so that you're able to actually see what we're thinking about doing, and we can actually spend a couple of minutes in the session next year looking at that. So better attendance as well will also give you an opportunity to have insight. This is Tarryn's first poll by the looks of it. So 2025 features. These are some of the features, not all of them. You saw some of them on that list, and there were others that we didn't put there for space purposes. But we'd like you to quickly go to that Mentimeter, the link that Lindy has posted, and rank for us quickly the ones that you found the most valuable. Side panel, as you know, is that panel that pops up on the side. It means you can quickly add and edit. Scheduler is PPO's inbuilt scheduling tool, which allows you to do your own project plans and those things. Multiple resources assigned to an item. If you want to assign multiple people to a task or give a work item to multiple people or even have multiple risk owners. Calculated key metrics you'll see today. The grid widget, very useful for updating data that has a time element, like benefits, like costs, like resource allocation. Line chart widget was one we added to our widget library. And now they're all going in different orders, so now I've got to see which I'm missing. And the inline editing, which Tarryn has snuck in here, even though we've only just deployed it. But that is really just a feature that will allow you to update single or multiple items on a single list, on a single page, without having to click, edit, save, back to the list, click, edit, save, and reduce some of those clicks that PPO has historically had. Okay, so seems like the scheduler is the overall winner. It was a feature that I know we spent a lot of time on. We actually have it quite predominantly on our pipeline for next year as well. We keep adding additional features and items to that specific feature. So If you come back next year, you'll see some of those as well. Side panel also, the side panel was actually just a step to get to the inline editing. So while it wasn't a feature we'd initially planned on its own, it was something we needed to do to get to the inline editing. So you got the side panel first, and now you got the inline editing. Might be that you use the inline editing more, never the side panel, but I suspect you will use a combination of them. Okay. Somebody's pirating Tarryn's screen here. I think she'll take it back. Okay, so thanks very much for that feedback. Looks like the scheduler one. If some of these are items you have no idea about or never seen it or not sure about, then you're probably not following our blog. So good idea to follow the blog. We don't do Black Friday specials. We don't sell you training or free PPO licenses or anything like that. All we do is we give you a newsletter every single Thursday, and the main article in that newsletter covers the latest feature. We try and cover those then on a quarterly basis with our clients on the webinars, and the success managers that meet with the clients obviously cover that as well. Okay, our client base has grown quite nicely in the last quarter, so thank you very much. A number of organizations have joined. These are just some of them. MetaServe, Bank of Kigali, the CIC Group. I know some of them, I saw their names popping up here, so those are just some of the new clients. I know there's a whole bunch of people from a new area at Nedbank that are joined the call today, and they're also a new client in the new quarter, another area within Nedbank. So thanks for that, team. It's not that we forgot about you or that we don't love you, but we'll feature you, I'm sure, in the next quarter. And I know a lot of you are here actually to support your colleague who's doing one of the customer spotlights for us today. So welcome to all the new clients, and thanks once again for the continual support of PPO. Okay. There's the blog. Go to ppo.com/blog. I'm sure Lindy will post the link. Once again, we typically engage with clients, and sometimes we talk to them about a feature and they have no idea what we're talking about, even though we've done a blog, we've done a video, we've spoken about it, we've covered it in a webinar, and they're still sometimes not sure or aware of it. So the best way to stay up to date with our feature releases is to follow the blog. You put your name, surname, and email address in, and as I said, on a Thursday, religiously, you'll get an email with a short article and a link, and in most cases, a very quick video for you to see the new feature. And from there, you can activate it, deploy it, or ask your account manager or the support desk for help with that. Okay, so I think I'm done for the day. Tarryn?
Yeah, you are. Thank you, guys, for the introduction. Okay, so I am going to kick off with inline editing. And before we get into the detail, I just want to talk to you about the benefits or the value that inline editing has provided. It's the ability for you to maintain your project data and its project and related data from your list widget, either on your home page, if you've got a customized homepage view where you've got a list widget or a table added, or from any of your list pages. This gives you, you'll see, and this was just deployed this morning. So if you haven't seen it yet, about 9 o'clock this morning, this was made available to all clients' instances at no additional charge. And that's true of all new features in PPO. It's immediately available once we deploy it. You can see there's a pencil, a blue pencil, and once going into that edit mode, I have a requirement to update the phase of this project. So this project was incorrectly placed in executing. Oh, sorry, I just logged myself out. Let me just quickly log back in. Give me 1 second. It won't be too long. Just want to get my password here. So you'll see that from updating that information, in the past, you would have probably needed to navigate to a list page, click on your tick box, select multiple projects, and go into the edit mode. So that's changed in that you, from your list page, going back to my list of items that I want to update, click on my pencil. This whole row is now in an edit mode. I have the ability to update a single column or multiple columns. Here, I want to put it back into planning. This one, I want to change to planning and submit. The submit button is at the bottom, and it updates all of your information at the click of a button. In doing that, you'll see single value. So if I wanted to change a project manager, I could. The whole row is editable, and let's say in error, I clicked on the row, I want to cancel that update. If I click on the cross, I'm back in view mode and there's no change to be made. Some of the benefits that you'll notice is that once in edit mode, not only do you have calculated fields available to you, you also will see all required fields. So in addition to any other columns that you might have specified via your gear icon setting, you'll see dependent fields. So phase and status are dependent fields, and therefore I see both those fields available in my view to update. So inline editing, quick and easy editing, far more efficient, no need to navigate away from your list. You still see the rest of the data that's available to you. You have the ability to copy. So if I wanted to copy this line, I can. If I wanted to cancel or delete that copy, I can. And if I wanted to add a new value, I could also do the same thing, and it adds my row to populate my data and include all mandatory fields available to me to update. So the cross in some cases would mean delete, and in others it would mean cancel to go back into the view mode. Some other use cases. So the first use case was just updating a couple of columns, quick and easy, like updating the phase of projects or reallocating project manager. The next might be where you are maintaining the red and amber risk for your project, and you either want to update a follow update. So here, go into edit mode, navigate to my date column, update the date, push it out to a week later, and I can submit. So there I have the ability to just update one column. I still have my icons to make use of my side panel. So if I want to view the risk for that single record, my side panel will still pop up, or I can go directly into edit mode where there's a requirement to update more than just a single value. So maybe there's more than just one or two values. I want to expand on the description, or I want to start updating, a couple of fields that aren't available in my list page. It is very likely that you'll start using inline editing a lot more than you do the side panel. You still have the option to maintain the columns that are editable via your gear icon. So this is still an option. If you want to change the columns that you see, you can either click on to select additional columns, remove columns, drag and drop, all still available to you via your gear icon. For project managers specifically, so you can see I've got my project manager view. One of the added advantages of using inline editing is when you're doing your status reporting updates. See, as a project, I have my 5 health indicators that I need to update. They're about almost due for my next update. I can click on the pencil. I can immediately see my RAG is editable now. I have my previous RAG visible to me, so I can see what it was before. I can update the RAG, update my comment to support it. I can move to the next row, do the same thing, change my RAG, update my comment, and in submitting, it will make changes to all the rows that I've updated. So very useful for project managers that are responsible for updating status reporting. This should save you a lot more time than you would have in the past. You've got all your items in one view by using your pencil. That is effectively your inline editing. So that takes care of inline editing, available, as I've mentioned, to all client instances as of this morning. It does apply on a homepage view or any of your list pages. So the same actions that I've just performed, I could do exactly the same thing on a list page. It's available. If I go into edit mode, it puts the whole row into edit mode, which means I can update more than one column, move to the next one, so I can see I've got 2 rows in an edit mode, make my changes and submit. If I went to a risk or action or work item page, example, on work items, you might be maintaining your estimate to complete, or changing your priority, or changing your status. You can do that. This one might be one that started. You can go into doing, you can submit, but it depends on your preference. Some users would prefer to use their board views to drag and drop, but there's a place for both inline editing, board views, drag and drop, and that's just various options for users based on their preference. Okay, so that takes care of inline editing. Our next feature that I'm going to touch on is our calculated key metrics. So this one is also fairly new. It's probably been around for about a month now. I'll use another homepage dashboard view to demonstrate the value that the calculated key metrics provides. So it's in addition to your normal metric. So you can see how to tell if a key metric is calculated or the basic option. You will see it by the icon that's displayed. If you see the calculator, that's one way of knowing that this is a calculated key metric. If you don't see this, then it is a basic key metric. So I'm going to just quickly talk to you about the difference between the two. On your settings, you'll see two options. First, the basic, then you see calculated. Regardless of whether you choose basic or calculated, you can now customize your caption. That previously wasn't possible. The caption was something that was based on your operators that were selected, but you have the flexibility to customize your caption. The caption is what you see below the metric or below the value. So there's my caption, average progress variance. To be able to achieve something like this in the past, you would have probably needed a calculated field to do this, but you could also still achieve it if the basic key metric that you've opted for. So I'll just show you the difference between the two. So here on my project list, here's an example of a basic key metric where an average operator has been applied. So if I click on it, you'll see basic, average, and the field is the variance percentage. That's how you would have implemented this. Now, with the introduction of the calculated key metrics, you can build those kinds of calculations directly in the canvas that you've got available. You can use your math, the logic. So the math is here, whether it's a sum, it's an average, it's a maximum. You've got your option to figure out whether you want a plus, minus, multiplication, division. So you've got that available to you. The fields, which fields you want to include in your calculations. And as you can see, for other examples that I've got, is that you can actually go and use your custom lists as well as your RAG fields and your yes/no fields in determining those calculations. So an example of that would be when you were doing something like, show me the percentage of projects that have a red health. That's not something that would have been achievable with a basic metric. So in this example, what my canvas will show is that my puzzle builder that I've got is I've count the number of projects where the health is red and divide that by the count of projects in our portfolio. The field type is a percentage because I want to see the percentage of projects with red health. I still have the benefit of using conditional coloring, so color coding. Because this is a bad thing, I want to show it as red. So I can see count the projects if the project health is red, and then divide it by the count of projects I have. How you would have done this in the past is figuring out, okay, how many projects do I have where the health is red? Okay, first thing you would have done, you would have checked how many projects in my portfolio. If I look at this, there's 15 projects in the portfolio. Then I would figure out, okay, how many of these projects is red? I've got 6. So there you can see 6. Then I would have said 6 divided by 15. That gives me my 40% of my projects where the health is red. And you would have done that on the side. You would have used a calculator to figure that out. But now you can do that calculation through a calculated key metric. There is a place for both basic and calculated key metrics. The value that you get from the count is that you've still got the drill through. So here, these 6 projects, I want to drill through and see exactly which 6 projects they are. By drilling through, it'll take me exactly to that list of 6 projects. The percentage doesn't give you the same option. It just gives you the percentage. You've got the drill through, but it'll take you directly to your list and it'll show you your full list of projects and not the ones that are just red. So just to highlight that there is a place for both calculated and basic, where with your basic key metric, you see your count with drill through, and these gives you the option to build your insights regardless of whether it's a percentage, an average, a currency. You can even with currency specify what currency sign you want to apply. So is it dollars, is it rand? So in the past where you needed to do multi-currency or even conversions and figure out what is an amount in dollars versus rands, you can do those kinds of things through your calculated key metrics. To help you guys, because I'm not sure how many of you have started building these key metrics, but if you haven't, we do have a knowledge base article which covers a number of use cases for these metrics. Things like percentage of projects with red governance, percentage of projects with red health, which is the one that I've just shown you, percentage of projects with no budget. So these are the kinds of metrics that would be useful to the PMO where they're trying to manage performance of the portfolio when it comes to on time within budget. And of course, the compliance aspect, the governance aspect very quickly will show you projects with, percentage of projects in our portfolio with red data quality. So these kinds of metrics, I mean, there's some that are a little bit more advanced than others, but they are very simple ones that you can get started with. If you've not attempted it, please give it a go. Use your knowledge base to get it, and of course, chat to your success manager. Admins have a role to play in updating the widget configuration. If you want to apply specific ones to your user groups, you can do that. But yeah, this is now available and ready for you guys to use. And I think that's it until we touch on the other small enhancements later. Over to you to introduce the sale guy.
Louise, I see you've put your hand up. You can pop your question in the chat there and we'll get to it. Otherwise, at the end, we're happy to take it as well.
It was a mistake.
You are forgiven. Thank you very much, Lucille, for joining us today. Lucille Olivier is joining us from Nedbank. She is a multi-timed PPO user. I don't know what we call it. So she used PPO at a previous organization and then joined Nedbank. And luckily, PPO was being already used at Nedbank. So Lucille is going to cover a feature for us relating to demand. Before she jumps into it, thank you very much for doing this. Any other clients that see value in this, please contact us, because as I mentioned when we started, this is not a feature you'll currently see in PPO or a feature that is on our website. We've developed this feature a year and a half ago. We've used it with a number of clients. We've been improving it and maturing it, and we're now at the point in the next year where we're going to do the last couple of changes on it and put it into PPO as a formal feature for everybody. That said, anybody who wants to make use of it post today, contact us. We'll deploy it. We'll work with you to get it where it is, and we'll explain to you some of the improvements we're going to be making for it. Before Lucille jumps into it, just quickly why. A lot of times PPO has an audience of users who are generally the PMO team, some business owners and sponsors, key team members, but you want to farm demand, or maybe some of you call it project ideas, or maybe some of you call it project requests from a much wider audience. So you servicing the business, you've got a PMO, and in the old days you'd say, fill out this form, email it to PMO at acme.com, and we'll then register a project and we'll allocate a project manager. Or if you're a SASL or one of these organizations that has a large ideation or process of innovation where you want people to say, if you could think of a great idea for a project, please log it here as an idea, and we'll then put it through a sift or through a funnel, and off we go. We have a large number of clients that do continual business improvement as small projects on PPO. They're not, not complex projects, but they want to do those small continual business improvement, and the PMO wants to record how many came in, how many were prioritized, how many were executed, how long did it take, those type of things. In PPO today, you need to log on to PPO to actually be able to add or edit or update or view something. And this feature allows us the ability to have a capture screen, which is aligned to your configuration of PPO outside of PPO that anybody can access without having to be a user, be trained, have a subscription, all the rest of it. So a very quick and simple way to get that. So I'm going to hand over to Lucille. Thank you very much for doing this. And she's going to cover this feature and how they've applied it within this space within Nedbank. But that's the why, as to why we have this feature coming up and why we think it's an important feature. So over to you, and thanks, Lucille, once again for joining us and sharing this with us today.
Thanks, Guy. Thanks, Tarryn. So I just want to thank PPO, obviously, for the opportunity to demo our instance of the dynamic demand form today. I think it's just important to note that even though we're in our infancy of the demand form, it has already added so much value to our PMO. All right, before I begin, I just want to note that I'll be using some terms interchangeably. So that'll be the words tribe and PMO, as our PMO is currently transitioning, to align with Nedbank's restructure program. So if I do use those words interchange, I don't want to confuse anybody, just know that they mean basically the same thing. All right. So it's important for us to really set the scene in terms of our environment. Sorry, guys, can you hear that in the background? Apologies for that. So I think it's important to set the scene in terms of our environment. Our PMO or tribe manages 3 primary units of work or divisions, one being stockbroking, we have advice, investments and fiduciary, and then we have the wealth management South African portfolio of work. These 3 units, or the primary units of work, are supported by 6 secondary units that provide inputs and resources to enable their delivery. Within our PMO, we have 3 categories of initiatives. Innovation, that comprises of large execution teams, and those are generally cross-functional. They have larger budgets, rigorous governance guardrails, and due dates that cannot be moved. We then have our SMEs, or our small medium enhancements. These are incremental improvements rather than large scale transformations. And then we have our business as usual, which is the normal execution of standard function operations within our IT environment. So the dynamic demand form is used for innovation-related initiatives. That's what we use in our tribe. Our main decision-making body from an innovation perspective is known as the POCLAC. Our POCLAC forum comprises of the technical product owners, chapter leads, who are generally the engineering leads and or the enterprise architects, as well as agile coaches. We also have finance representation in our forum. The POCLAC is a human leadership mechanism. It was designed to build, own, and run the asset or journey. So our tribe would be an asset or journey, and end-to-end across its life cycle. Some of the issues that we were experiencing as a POCLAC forum was that we would have misalignment with strategic objectives. And that basically means that our ideas were not always being linked to what Nedbank calls our golden thread of PMO governance. And that often resulted in initiatives that didn't fully support the wealth tribe strategic priorities. Our second problem statement, or not statement, but more of an issue, was around the lack of governance and transparency. There wasn't a single source of truth for idea intake and prioritization. And decisions were often very vague, and that led to duplicated efforts and misaligned investments. Our third issue was around fragmented demand management, where requests for new initiatives were coming through multiple informal channels, such as emails, chats, the dreaded corridor discussions, or those dreaded online, offline discussions. And that made it very hard for us to track and prioritize and align with our strategic goals. The fourth item was around inefficient prioritization process. So without a structured mechanism, the team really struggled to evaluate ideas consistently. against business value. Capacity was another component, as well as regulatory requirements. So this really did slow down our delivery, and it created bottlenecks within this process. And the last one being the poor benefits realization tracking. So after completion of our project, there was limited visibility into return on investment and value delivery, and making it quite difficult to measure success and justify future investments for our initiatives. So that really summarizes or sums up the problem statement that our POCLAC, the Wealth Tribe, struggled with, right? I'm just going to hop over to the next one. So Nedbank Wealth, we embarked on our own journey for a solution, and we noted the following issues. So the first one was a lack of skilled internal resources. So that's internal to our tribe, to assist us in creating a solution for us. Going external, so when I say external, I mean external to our tribe, but still internal to Nedbank, would mean we would require budget, and that wasn't planned for in our 3-year planning efforts. There was also, in terms of the solution that we had in mind, there was insufficient licenses, which we then needed to procure, and that basically points back to the second point around not having budget to procure that. And then lastly, we had, in terms of maintenance and configuration, we required a dedicated resource to develop this solution for us. So that wasn't an option for us. And that is why the monthly check-in with our success manager, Andre Norris, shout out to Andre, was very critical. So we were able to clearly articulate our requirements very easily. I mean, this is what PPO does, right? Daniel and the PPO ninjas could quickly assist us in validating the requirements and the business rules. And although we could eventually configure our own instance of the dynamic demand form, PPO's technical oversight was essential to ensure that our instance remained stable. What we didn't want to do was go ahead and start breaking things. We had that clear guidance from Daniel. So thank you so much for that, Daniel. You made it a real pleasure working with you. And then obviously we have our PPO budget, which means we didn't have to request additional budget from finance. It's always a discussion that you don't want to have with the finance team. And then time to market, or for us it'd be time to our stakeholders, was quick, and we could implement our demand management quite easily. The other item links back to what Guy mentioned earlier on around not requiring a PPO license. So our stakeholder groups, those that were outside of the PMO, they were provided with a link, and that was made available to them. And that meant that any one of our stakeholders could go in and log the demand. All right, so PPO was the obvious choice. All right, I'm going to quickly switch to my, I'm going to pause there. I've been speaking a lot. Are there any questions? Okay, Taryn, Guy, I don't see any hands. Okay, great. I'm going to quickly share my screen again. You should be seeing the project demand form. Taryn, can you give me a nod? Are you comfortable? Okay, great. So while we have this in place, it's important to note that it's not our final version. We have PPO on this journey with us to ensure that we obtain value that the dynamic form can really bring, to ensure that our stakeholders really see the value in it. What we wanted was a clean, easy-to-use form that provided us with critical information that could be used at the POCLAC level, but also be reused for the APMs, so APMs, Agile Project Managers, as initial project information. We were also very cognizant of the fact that our stakeholders were not in favor of completing complex, laborious business cases. So the goal was for the inputs of the system to form outputs for a lean business case. And we've actually logged that as an idea with PPO. Just a heads up, Guy, if we win, I'd like one of those very fancy PPO cups. They're fabulous. All right. Then we move on. So what we then did is we ran a few initiative requests through our dynamic demand form, and we found, the following challenges. But that really provided us, as the PMO, with an opportunity to start educating our stakeholders, right, at a more, I want to say deeper level, but I'll explain what I mean by that shortly. So many of our stakeholders don't understand the business need. They maybe have one or two sentences, and they feel that is sufficient for us to continue with a large-scale project. The other component being that they were not able to articulate their objectives or the deliverables clearly. And then not understanding the impact of an unplanned initiative, especially on resources and cost or budget, as well as the entire portfolio of work. So the whole trade-off discussion, that for them was a new concept, because they figured that somebody behind the scenes would be able to do that, and then they'll just get it done. So that was very important for them to understand. Right. So for the purposes of this demo, I've pre-populated fields, and we can quickly go through these in more detail. I'm obviously not going to focus on items that won't add values. So things like project name, I think we all know what that is. I'm not going to focus too much on that. What we did for business benefit, we had a multiple list, which is a great feature from PPO. And what we did is we aligned with the cluster or the division strategic objectives. And then we were actually going to use that in terms of our ROI tracking. So that's very important for us to be able to link that, and not only us as a POCLAC, but for the broader stakeholder group to understand how that's going to link back to strategy, because the PMO is the execution or delivery mechanism for strategy. Right, then we have priority remains as is. In terms of systems impacted, what we have here is we're busy building a custom list which is currently in progress with our enterprise architect. So this field will be updated, and it's very important for us when chatting with Tarryn in terms of identifying systems where we're getting demand and which systems are most impacted. It also provides us with an opportunity to, when we identify the systems that we are sunsetting or decommissioning, what type of new demand is coming in where that could potentially impact that sunsetted system. All right. In terms of vendor dependency, this is a critical component for our public and our tribe, because it's a very complex vendor management onboarding process if the vendor isn't already onboarded as part of Nedbank's supplier list. So in order not to delay the progress of any project, the vendor onboarding process could be initiated quite earlier in the process. All right. Required end date. So it's always good to try and identify when business feels that they want this implemented, which is always as soon as possible, because it's always very critical. But this just provides us with a better understanding, which we can always go back and interrogate as a POCLAC, but just to understand where the stakeholders' heads are at in terms of delivery. Approved as part of our 3-year planning, that was quite critical. We have had projects that were not thought of through, but we are welcoming those projects into our portfolio. We just need for the business to understand the importance of what they needs to stop in order for this project to come in. That's that trade-off discussion. All right, our stakeholders remain pretty static. However, we have included a multiples list in terms of resources, because we understand, and if I'm butchering things, Tarryn, please just stop me. We understand that we have multiple deciders and multiple advisors. So what we wanted to do is potentially group these stakeholders together, and it also forms a really great basis when it comes to the APM having to set up that kickoff session or that scoping session to ensure that we have the right people on board. Because what often happens is business drafts are 1 or 2 lines. They say these are the people included, and the APMs go ahead and they set up these kickoff meetings, only to find out that Mr. H and Mr. Y were not invited. They weren't thought of. And so, they generally have a major impact on these projects. So it's just to start fleshing out that stakeholder list. All right, in terms of the classification and estimation, this really talks to which of the business units that we are trying to solve for. And this will also assist us in our 3-year planning efforts by providing a high-level view of the demand being logged, same as the historical trend. All right. Okay, and then obviously the 3-year planning period. We're in 2025 now, but this is being logged and will only be executed in 2026. All right. Any questions there so far, Taryn? If there's anything you want to add, please hop in. Okay, great. Then we click on submit. Now there's some fancy footwork that happens in the back end, and I'm not going to pretend that I know what that is. But if I refresh, it should then pull through the new item, which was the master demand management project. It's now sitting in the demand entity. So guys, this is our training instance. So you're not seeing items in prod. But if you click on the demand entity at the top here, it will bring up the demand that has been logged already. All right. So we have captured additional demand just to provide you with a view of what this would look like in the production environment. So now the demand is visible. I will go into the logged request, which is this item here. Sidebar, fabulous. Let's open. All right, so everything that was captured in the demand form is now pulled through. I'll go through it. The POCLEC team will go through it, and we will then, there is a section that's called, trying to find it. You try again.
There's management section. I think you scrolled past it.
Did I scroll past it? Oh, there we go. There we go. See, good guys. Good eyes there. Guy, thank you. So we have this section, which is specific to our POCLEC. If I click on edit, I'm going to mark this initiative as logged. That means that I've gone through it. My POCLEC commentary would be that we will be reviewing this at the POCLEC, and my follow update will be the next available POCLEC date. All right. I will then go and pull the demand form. I'm just going to move this quickly. An individual demand report. I send this to our POCLEC team members because not everyone has access to a PPO license. That will give the POCLEC, our POCLEC team members that don't have a license, the opportunity to review, ask any questions before the next POCLEC then starts. All right. I just want to check. Right. So when we're in POCLEC, we will then discuss the demand. And if there's any additional information that is missing, it'll form part of a sort of a supporting documents for additional content or context from the requester. If the information is sufficient, we will then discuss so our EAs and our engineering leads will they need to perform some analysis on their end, and that's generally to see what systems are impacted. So what does our architecture landscape look like? Once again with POCLEC commentary and a follow update. What I do want to do is I'm going to force this one through and approve it. What happens is once we've submitted and we've selected approved, there will be a project that would be initiated in our instance of PPO. I'm just going to pause there for a second. Tarryn, Guy, anything we want to add around? Anything that I'm missing?
Spot on so far. I think you're giving them a lot more than we initially planned.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll try and be quick.
No, I think it's good.
And this will be our last piece here. I just want to show the team that the project, the shell has been created. So the MDM Master Data Management Project is there. I'm going to quickly check under projects. Don't do me bad. Come on. Who did we have? I think it was Nosh. Let's go back. Yeah. And there is our project. It's in ideation phase. Can everyone see? And the information that was captured in the demand form, the basic information around description and objectives, now appears, making that piece of administration an absolute breeze. So thank you very much. That is it from my side. If there are any questions, just let me know. Thank you so much, Guy and Tarryn. I hope that helps.
Lucille, you're a star. That was perfect.
Awesome.
I think the important thing for some people might be on this call, Lucille's actually covered two features here in PPO, which is awesome. Thanks for doing that. The one is demand. Some of you that have been using PPO for a long time might not even see that demand icon that she showed over there. Some of you that are not regular PPO users might see it as something called request. You might see it as something called idea, because that entity in PPO is something that you can configure. And as I started off saying, a lot of organizations have a continual business improvement objective or a ideation process or something like that. So if you don't have the demand entity in PPO and you've never seen it, talk to us, because that's the first thing we can do is get the demand entity in. The demand entity is very useful to let you record potential projects that may be required but not put them into your project list and into your portfolio immediately, because there's normally that screening. Lucille has given you additional value today in explaining how Nedbank goes through that screening process of deciding whether this demand becomes a project or not, and how they go through that, because that's also quite important in this process. So while the idea today was to feature more on this dynamic page to let you farm that demand or that need or that request or that idea outside of PPO. She showed you now how the two tie together, and how if the demand is then approved, it forms part of your portfolio and off you go. A lot of clients that do capital planning have a capital planning process where they put in a request, it goes on a big spreadsheet, they move it around for 2 months, and then they decide what the capital plan is and they approve it. Clients like AB and Bev and those type of guys do that directly on PPO now by doing the capital planning in PPO and not through an Excel spreadsheet. A lot of the consumer goods, FCMG clients, famous brands and Rainbow Chicken and guys like that use this demand process before they launch into a project. Northwest University is another client that uses this feature where they've got requests for projects across the entire campus, infrastructure related, maintenance related, and they do that. So a lot of use cases for this. If you've never seen the demand entity as well, then you can do that as well. Rachel Young here is also saying that they're a consultancy primarily, so they use it as a sales pipeline. So before it becomes a project and they're exploring an opportunity with a client, they'll raise it as a demand, they'll work with the client, do a process, go through costing, go through proposals, and if the idea is then, or if the proposal is then accepted, it then gets approved and goes into the pipeline. But it allows you that opportunity to have a pipeline or a demand or a requirement list before it gets to project, and then only once it's approved go to project. So various use cases for this. Lucilla's now covered 2, so I feel like we've done next month's or next quarter's webinar as well in terms of customer spotlight. So she's covered the demand side, but she's also covered how you can farm that, as she mentioned, without PPO licenses, without training, without those type of things. So Lucille, thank you very much for coming in as well and for doing that, and thanks for the great presentation. Okay. I see some of the clients are already asking for some discussions there. If you are one of those, put it in there, tag in your success manager, and then they'll come back to you. I'm going to let Tarryn carry on now, Tava, and post your question on the side. And if we don't get there, I'll chat to you. I know there's a couple of stuff Tarryn still wants to wrap up, and we need to make sure we finish by 2 o'clock as well. Okay, Tarryn, you've got about 5 minutes left before I think we need to start wrapping up.
Okay, in the 5 minutes, I'm just going to remind everyone about the Gantt improvements that have been made, specifically on reporting. So we made some changes to the Gantt widget, where on your Gantt widget, you can use the slider, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, and the look and feel of the Gantt widget was one that was requested a number of times in the reporting outputs. So if your instance still shows the old visual of the Gantt, this is something that can be updated. It was not automatically applied across all client instances, as every client has customized their status dashboards or portfolio views or portfolio timeline views. But here's an example of it on my project status dashboard, where the Gantt widget look and feel is now included in the project status dashboard's Gantt chart. So if you're not seeing this on your status dashboard, then reach out to your success manager or your or the support desk by logging a ticket, and this is something that can be updated for you. So here you can see interactive Gantt view on the project status dashboard is something that can be done as a result of the Gantt improvements. Same is true for your portfolio dashboard. So quickly showing you your portfolio dashboard, specifically the portfolio timeline section of your portfolio dashboard. Hopefully you're not seeing this portfolio dashboard for the first time, but I'm just going to navigate to this portion of the portfolio timeline where you can see the list of all the projects in the portfolio, the project manager. Hopefully your project managers have applied their avatars to give it a visual of who it is, and you can see this Gantt widget look and feel is now shown in the portfolio dashboard. So that's the one that I wanted to highlight on our Gantt improvements. We haven't seen too much adoption of that change. So if you haven't yet and you don't have that, please reach out to your SM. The last 2 changes, which I'm going to touch on, is the sticky the sticky feed header being one of them. If you use your feed as much as I do, and keep a lot of items unread that you're going to come back to, you can see that on your feed, this header is now sticky. In the past, you would have had to scroll up and down to get to your items, but you can see this portion stays at the top. So as you scroll, you don't have to scroll right back to the top to close the feed. This portion of your header will stay sticky. So that's the first one. And finally, the second one is an update to our history reporting. Specifically things like your issues, your risk updates, that generates quite a bit of history. Another one being your comments. We improved the look and feel of the reporting outputs, and we made it customizable in that you can now specify the columns that you want to track the history of. In the past, it was not configurable in that you couldn't really say which columns. It was static columns that we gave to you, but you can now specify which columns should show in your history reports. How you read your reports is that anything that's in the bold is the latest version of the record, and in italics is the previous version. So this, you can very quickly see this item or this risk was previously assigned to the cash flow boost project, then it was reassigned to MIS reporting. You can see the risk owner has changed from Barry to Evelyn, and that's the latest version of the record. So that's the change to history reporting, look and feel, improved bold italics for history records, and the ability to customize the columns for which you want to track the history of. And that's it. I think I did it in the 5 minutes you gave me, Guy.
Thanks very much, Tarryn. We tried to explain to Tarryn numerous times that if she responded to her feeds and gave us comments on the stuff, she wouldn't need to have a sticky header. She's one of those people with 400 mails in her Gmail account. But if you just work through those feeds religiously, Tarryn, then nothing has to stick at the top. Nelda James, who runs the PMO at Famous Brands, just made an important comment here, and I don't think we were clear on it. The reason it's called the dynamic demand form is if you configure your PPO demand entity and you add more fields, or maybe Louise wants to add additional requirements to say, when would you like to start this project, and she adds a date field. PPO has always allowed you to change your data fields very easily without technical input. So you're very quickly able to add a field into an entity, whether that's a risk or project or demand. And the word dynamic is important because if you as an administrator go and add those fields in, they automatically pop onto that form. Nobody has to develop it. There's no changes. We don't have to go through code review or everything. So as you customize and change your demand entity with the fields that you want, Lucille has given you now a good view of how Nedbank farms the demand and what they look at and the type of information they ask. That's dynamic. So I think that's also very useful, because when Famous Brands initially started using this, they asked similar type questions, and they've matured this quite a while, and they now actually ask some prioritization questions. How does this align to strategy? What's the ROI on this? How long do you think this is going to take? How disruptive is this going to be to business? How much change does this need to people and process? So they've grown their question set on those demands to force the people requesting the demand to think a bit more about some of those. And as they added those fields in, it automatically flows through onto that demand form, which I think is very useful as well, because you'll see when you start using that, you start thinking about, okay, now that the users are in the habit of requesting projects or requesting demand, what other questions should I be asking them that they should be filling out in the beginning so that I've got a richer set of information. Okay, Lucille, you've got your hand up. I don't know if you want to make a comment. She's giving us a thumbs up. Okay, very quickly. Are there any specific features you'd like us to cover in the next client spotlight? So I think if there are any specific features that you have, I think this is just a text type question, Tarryn. So if there's any features that you think you may be ready for, or that other clients have, or your success manager has told you about, type it in there. It's always useful for us to know which features you'd like us to focus on more. Then we go and find the A+ clients with a higher grade rating who are using that feature, getting good value out of it, and then we go through the process of getting them. So resource planning demand is one up there. Something we've seen a lot of recently. We're actually doing quite a bit of work. That Gantt chart improvement and those things help with that. We've actually got an item in the pipeline now to improve on some of that. Okay, so you can type those up. We'll take it out of here, and we'll raise those then. resource planning demand. So second one for that. Maybe it's the same person who just wants it very badly. Capacity planning and demand. Same thing in PPO's world. Okay. Taryn, you're going to have a hard time doing your next quarterly webinar and not covering resource capacity planning and demand by the looks of it. Okay, good stuff. Thank you very much. Taryn, anything more? Okay, there's some comments being placed on the chat here. Thanks, Frans, for those. We'll pick those up as well. Rate the webinar today, please, for us. I think it's a 1 to 5 scale or something like that. Okay, Taryn will run that in the background, so you'll still be able to vote on that. Next webinar scheduled for next year. I think we do it around March normally.
Yes, that's correct. The date for the next webinar is, I'll just tell you now, it is the 11th of March.
Okay, 11th of March, just before the 21st of March public holiday. Lindy, I think, is going to post a link in there. So the webinar date is already on our website. We haven't figured out what the content is and who our customer spotlight is and those things. We'll do that early next year. But 21st of March, if you do want to register, 11th of March, if you do want to register for it already, you're more than welcome to do that. It'll send you a link. You pop that in your diary, and then you block out your lunchtime on the 11th of March. And we'll cover the features that we're going to deploy between now and then, and hopefully find a good client reference with the resource capacity planning item that seems to be a requirement.